Well, welcome everybody to night 3. I'm excited you're here. And for those of you who are watching online, I just wanted to say hi, and I'm glad that I'm able to do this for you guys. So why don't we stand and say the pledges? Can we do them by memory? David, before you put it up. Can you all do them by memory, do you think? Some of you know.
The first one.
Can we do the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag by memory? Let's do that one. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. You're fired, Cindy. And justice for all. Okay, let's do the church. One sec. Here we go. I pledge, that's not the church. One sec. There we go. I pledge allegiance to my church and to my Lord upon whom it is built. I will love my pastor and all the members and will faithfully support my church with my attendance, money, service, and prayers. Christian flag. I pledge allegiance to the Christian flag and to the Savior for whose kingdom it stands, one Savior, crucified, risen, and coming again with life and liberty to all who believe. And I pledge allegiance to the Bible, God's holy word. I will make it a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. I will hide its words in my heart that I might not sin against God. And the motto for press towards the mark for the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus, Philippians 3:14, which is always said very loud. So if you can say it. Yes. Put it up, zip it up. Oh, let me say them real quick because Deborah's new. So it's put it up, which generally we do something like this. Zip it up. Oh no, that's fold it up. Zip it up. What is put it up?
Put it up is put everything out of your hands.
Put it up.
Zip it up.
Zip it up. Fold it up. Keep your hands to yourself. Be safe. Be kind. Yeah. Nice. And wear a mask. All right. You guys ready? Do some singing. good. I just was hoping you guys would get to know that song, so I'm glad we're able to sing it. And it's such a true song. It's so good to just sing reassuringly, like God's word is reliable. I can trust in this. Because we need that reminder as adults, right? Just as much as kids. So here's the next one I just wanted to teach you real quick. Be excellent. What is good? I think that's a good key. So this is how it goes, Deborah. I go, Romans. What? 16. What? 19 says. What? That's how it goes. Okay, here we go. Romans 16. 19 says. Romans 16. 19 says. Be excellent at what is good. Be innocent of evil. Be excellent at what is good. Be innocent of evil. And the God of peace will soon crush Satan. Yes, God will crush him. Yep, it's God will crush him, and then you all go, where? Underneath your feet. And we might even do like a hoo-ha or something right there, okay? And by the way, this is just straight scripture. Like it's word for word what Romans 16:19 says. So, and the God of peace will soon crush Satan. Yes, God will crush him underneath your feet. Hoo-ha! And the God of peace will soon crush Satan. Yes, God will crush him underneath your feet. Romans 16:19 says. Romans 16:19 says. Be excellent at what is good. Be innocent of evil. Be excellent at what is good. Be innocent of evil. And the God of peace will soon crush Satan. Yes, God will crush him underneath your feet. Hoo-ha! And the God of peace will soon crush Satan. Yes, God will crush him underneath your feet. Romans 16:19 says. Romans 16:19 says. Maybe I don't know how to end it. That's the one they really like. Hoo-ha! I originally, when I heard the song, I thought this is almost like a little bit weird or sacrilegious. Like, why are we singing a song about like God's going to crush him underneath my feet? It's because the Bible says God is going to crush Satan underneath our feet. So that's a legitimate thing to rejoice in, I think, right? That the author of evil and of destruction and the one who's out to destroy these kids, he's going to be crushed. And God is going to use us to just invade that kingdom and bring light into that darkness and get rid of that evil and oppressive king of this world, right? God is going to use us to do that, and that's exciting. That's what we're saying hoo-ha for. So that is all I had. If you would have a seat, we'll jump into our lesson. Somebody get hurt? Okay. Whew. Oh, you dropped the brand new $1,000 microphone on the floor. My goodness. No, that's okay. Yeah, so that's okay, Cindy. It's actually been dropped multiple times by people in the praise team. Thankfully, they're pretty durable, and it'll be...
We won't mention Josiah's name.
Yes. We won't mention Josiah and David Stout, who are the leaders of the praise team. Okay, so I want you guys to just imagine with me for a second the most shocking day of club ever. Okay? Just think about it in your mind. Okay, the most shocking day of club. You come in from work a little bit late, and you have the meal with everybody and last minute details, but you got your notes, you're at your table, you talk to your kids, right? And they share some things about their week. Tim was at school, and he got bullied a little bit by a friend of his who pushed him and got in a fight, and you asked him how that was, and he said, it was okay, I didn't hit him back. You say, well, thank you, Tim, for that's really great. and you go to Susie, and you go around the circle. You get to your last kid, and your kid says, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second? Just like in private. I need to. Something happened. I just need to talk to you. Is that okay? Can we talk?" So you call Josh or David or somebody over to your table, and they take the kids, and you get them in a group and say, "Josh, take them into the lesson." And you sit down with, let's say Susie is her name, and you say, "Yeah, Susie, what's going on?" And Susie says, "Well, last night," and she's very, it's not coming out. Well, my uncle was over, like my friends were over, my family was over, and my uncle just, he hit me, and he pulled me into another room, and he just did some things. So, what do we do? What do we do when a child shares that there is sexual or physical abuse happening in their life? What we don't want is to be unprepared for that. We do not want to be standing there in shock. Like, that is the most shocking day of club we've had. We want to be prepared so that when the wounded show up, we will be able to give help and hope to them. We're going to talk about two areas of that are kind of heavy today. The first is abuse, and the second is discipline, which are kind of two peas in a pod, actually. So I think it'll be good. But I entitled this lesson originally, "What is going to happen at club this year?" or what you'll probably experience in your group this year, because discipline issues are going to come up. And here's the thing. 7.9% of men and 20% of women, 19.7% of women, globally will experience sexual abuse prior to 18. What that means is that statistically speaking, 1 in 10 kids who comes to Olympians has been abused sexually already. 1 in 10. Which means, if that is true, that you will probably have a kid in your group who's been abused to some degree by somebody. Now, there's a lot of definitions for that, and I was just going to read these definitions out of the Michigan, if I know where I put it, oh, it's right here, out of the Michigan compiled laws for the state. There's two definitions. The first is child abuse, okay? So child abuse means harm or threatened harm to a child's health or welfare that occurs through non-accidental physical or mental injury, right? It could be, so it's not accident, it's purpose. Physical or mental injury through sexual abuse, exploitation, or maltreatment by a parent, a legal guardian, or any other person responsible for the child's health or welfare, including by a teacher or a teacher's aide, that is you, or a member of the clergy, that is me. That's child abuse. So non-accidental physical or mental injury, sexual abuse, or maltreatment. Sexual abuse, if I'm going to define that according to their definition, it means engaging in sexual contact with a child as those terms are defined in the penal code, which means child is 18 years or under. So any kind of contact sexually with a child 18 years or under, they could be 15, they could be 16, it is considered sexual abuse. So what did I just read? 20% of women have that happen to them before they are 18 years old. I'm going to share some statistics that, I'll be honest, the first time these were shared with me, I was sick from hearing them. So it's not going to be a fun 5 or 10 minutes, but I think it's important that we know. So in America, it's an even higher percentage than 20%. 1 in 4 girls will be molested prior to 18 years old, 25%. An average of 117 youngsters, this is crazy, an average of 117 will be molested before the person who's the molester gets caught and is prosecuted. An average of 117 youngsters will be molested before criminal prosecution. And there was somebody who actually thinks that number's higher. They think it's 172. The incidence rate of child abuse and neglect in our country is about 10 times as high as the rates of any kind of cancer. 10 times the people who have cancer have been sexually abused. It's that prevalent. I'm going to skip a couple. 35 to 40% are victimized by juveniles. So 30 to 40% of the time it's a teenager who's older. Victims under 12 years old have an equal likelihood of being molested by a juvenile or an adult. And here's one to write down in your Bible and just think about. Approximately 95% of prostitutes have been sexually abused as children. So if we want to deal with that problem in our society, that industry I should call it, maybe we're starting in the wrong place as far as dealing with it. And then the estimated annual cost of child abuse in the world is $2.2 billion spent on that. So what do we do when, like I said, it could, whether they come and tell us is a different question, but the fact of it, the reality of it is true. So there's probably going to be kids there who've experienced this from somebody in their life. So a couple things. Number one, the reality of abuse. You can write that down. It's a real thing. We should not be surprised by it if it comes up. We should not be shocked. Hopefully that's not a shocking day. It's a day that we've prepared for, that we know is coming. It's a day that we're ready to sit down with that child and answer those questions. Number two, I just wanted to talk briefly about the damage of abuse. So again, I'm going to be reading this from the Michigan Department of, I don't know the exact name of it, Department of State Health Services, okay? So here's some of the effects that this has on children. I mentioned the prostitution one. Here's another one. Victims of child abuse often suffer from the following things. Number one would be inability to trust, which often leads to problems with relationships. Feelings of guilt or anger and low self-esteem, a tendency towards alcohol and drug abuse, eating disorders, suicidal thoughts, and suicide. Victims of child abuse also tend to engage in criminal activity at a higher rate than the general population, and they're more likely than others to engage in risky sexual behavior as well. Studies have shown that abuse and neglect may negatively affect a children's physical, cognitive, emotional, and social development, resulting in things such as aggressiveness, anxiousness, the inability to control emotions, depression, and learning difficulties, among other problems. And one stat that I heard that is not in here is I have heard that people who have gender identity struggles and who switch genders have a very similar statistic, that it's like 80 or 90% of them have experienced abuse. So again, depression, aggressiveness, sexual misconduct, learning difficulties, all these things, right? They're huge issues in society, and they're all correlated with what? This one thing, yeah, with abuse. And so again, it's real and it damages. Those are the first 2 points. My third is just, how do we respond? So responding to abuse, and this is what I wanted to spend a little bit of time on. What do we do? What do you do if this happens? So I gave you guys all a packet. There's a lot of information in here. Because of this reality, and And I could have gone on with the statistics. That's only a fifth of what I have here on this piece of paper. I just don't have time to cover them all. Our church, a year and a half ago, led by a team of trustees, myself, Pastor Dan, we went through and we made a policy, and we started with this policy called the Kanakuk Safety System, and we revised it and updated it for a church context. It is 132 pages. So I'm giving you like just a little glimpse into it tonight. But there's a lot that is being done at our church that a lot of people don't know. We have a safety team who is like hawks. They are watching. We have a system in place to make sure that all of the rooms in this building are accessible by at least a handful of people. So even myself, I'm not the only person who can get into one room. Does that make sense? We've tried to remove locks. We're actually not completely done with that, but we've removed a lot of locks, and we're working on getting windows in these office doors and in that office so that there's visibility. There's stuff being done to the grounds. There's stuff insurance-wise, like what if this happens at our church? How do we cover that insurance? It's, like I said, it's 130 pages. And this is printed, and it's on record. So just so you guys know, we're doing a lot to work at this, and we're reviewing this regularly. Gina is kind of in charge of holding on to these documents and records. You guys have, I think most of you, gone through the whole child safety application form. There's background check that's involved with that. I'm kind of saying this for Deborah's sake and for some of the people online who are listening in, but we do have an application. I think you filled out that application. Did you do the staff commitment? It was like a single page sheet. It had like 10 things on it and a signature at the bottom. Okay, so I'll talk about that in a second. So essentially what we do when people come in is we have them go through a packet of information, do an application process that involves a background check, and then sign a commitment. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that commitment entails. But back to my question, what do you do? What do you do when this happens in your group? How do you respond? Again, I'll just emphasize this one more time. What they don't need from us is shock. They don't need shock, right? Chances are you are the first person who they have told. And I just wanted to go into here and read a couple more stats. The first one is that 117 number. 117 on average before the person is caught or prosecuted. What does that mean? What percentage of kids report? Less than 1%. Maybe even less than 0.5%, because some of the kids might have had it happen multiple times. Because there's unfortunately more than one person out there doing this. It is not a localized problem, it is a global problem. Just a couple of things about these people that it'd be good to know. 3 to 5% of those accused end up being prosecuted. 3 to 5%. And of the, this is crazy too. This is really crazy. I just need to find it. Okay. There are 700,000 who have been prosecuted. 700,000 people in the United States who are registered offenders. Of those 700,000, 100,000 of them are missing. 100,000 of them, of the people who have been prosecuted, caught, found, and prosecuted, because only 1 in 116 is telling in the first place. And then of those people who have been told on, only, what percent of those? 3 to 5. So now you're down to 0.1% who are even getting prosecuted. And of that 0.1% who have been prosecuted, like it says, a third or a sixth of those are missing. So you're talking about less than 0.1% of the people who have been engaging in this who are actually like on record if there's a background check done. Does that make sense? So that's what's crazy, and that's the reality, again, of this. So chances are it's the first time they've told you. That's all the reason I said that. Chances are you're the first person they've told if this happens. And what's going to happen if we respond with shock or denial or, oh, it probably didn't happen that way? Or what do you guys think? Like, if you were a kid and you just bore your soul to somebody, what would you think if they said something like that? Oh, you might even, You might even believe that the adult was right? Oh, believe the child. Okay, that's good. I was asking the opposite question. I was asking, if I could reword it, if we respond in a way that says, like, oh, that didn't happen, what is that child going to be thinking?
It's not as bad as I thought it was.
It could be that. It could be like, I must have seen something, I might have just experienced this and just like,
This is okay.
yeah, maybe it wasn't what I thought. Maybe I just happened to think that it was something else. That's a huge one. That comes up all the time. What else?
More that they think that they're not important.
Yeah, they might have.
That's what happened.
Or they deserved it.
Yeah.
They deserved it. They're not important.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a second one. That's huge. Like they said there, self-image problems and like depression are huge among abuse victims. So it could be I'm not valuable. Like, not only do people do these things to me, and maybe it's my fault that they do these things to me, but in addition to that, nobody listens. Like, nobody cares about me. Like, I pretty much can't defend myself at all, right? What's a third thing they might think?
Can't be trusted, and you're not a safe place.
Yeah, you are definitely not a safe place. You have just destroyed your rapport. If you say, oh, that didn't happen, you've just ended your relationship with that child. You're not going to be a safe person to talk to. Because if it actually happened and you said it didn't happen, or you were like, oh goodness, like don't talk about that with me, that they're going to go somewhere else or they're not going to go somewhere else. And that's the fourth one. You might have just shut their mouth permanently. They might carry that with them the rest of their life and never tell anybody, because when they did, as a very impressionable second or third grader, that stuck with them. That reaction stuck with them. I can never tell anybody about this because it's going to, yeah. So if only 1% report and very often are not believed, by the way, I think that's why those numbers are so different. When it said 3% of those who are reported or prosecuted, the gap is actually in the fact that when kids report, people don't tell. Most of the time. 9 out of 10 times, an adult will hear it and then they won't say anything. Okay, so that leads me to this question: why don't people report? Let's just put yourself in their shoes and say, I'm gonna put myself under the bus. Okay, let's say you found out that a child said I did something. Okay, what might be causing you to say I don't want to say anything? Because again, we're trying to be prepared for this, right? So it's not a shock. Okay. Oh yes, Clarion's life is going to become very messy because you're going to be at the center point of this possibly conflict, depending on what gets found out and who believes who. Very messy, to tell the truth, absolutely. Or even to listen. What else? That is a huge one. Yeah, who wants to believe that Uncle Jim did that? You know? Like, as far as in a home situation, and who wants to believe that the pastor did that? But here's the thing. Most of the time in these cases, and this is another stat that I didn't get to, most of the time it's a trusted person. I think it's only like 10%. I'll find it and I'll read it to you. Okay, one sec. Okay, yeah, strangers account for only 10% of situations. 90% of the time it's a trusted adult or relative. So we're not looking for the guy in the trench coat. I mean, we are looking for the guy in the trench coat. The safety team is looking for the guy in the trench coat. But this is the importance of having policies in place like we have. It's to prevent one of us or one of somebody who appears to be very spiritual from getting in and doing something. So abusers tend to groom children with gifts and money. Oftentimes, they portray exemplary persona, what they call goodness above reproach. This is often people who are very, very trusted by their friends and family. And you're not surprised then when you hear of all these issues with pastors and missionaries who get caught after, like hundreds of people have been supposedly abused. It's because they had this persona of flawless conduct. And they did so with the purpose of using that as a crutch or a way of shielding themselves from accusation, right? So again, you can't necessarily, anybody who worked with Don Ketchum, the missionary who just was reported, anybody who worked with the guy who used to work at Kanakuk Camp as their head director for 20 years would have told you these men are solid, exemplary, above reproach guys. Trustworthy, dependable. Okay, so why don't people report? We had a couple things. Oftentimes, it's because they're afraid of what people are going to say about them. Oftentimes, it's they don't want to hurt the relationship with the person. Oftentimes, it's because they just simply don't trust kids, and they think, oh, he's probably making it up, right? They assume it's a fake story. It's messy, like Clarion said. Those are all good answers to why people don't report. Okay, so we're going to come back around to that, but I just wanted to make one or two more points just to look through this. Can you guys see this packet here? And we're going to just walk through it like a little bit at a time here. The first 2 pages are something they call the threat indicator, and I'm not going to go through this, but it kind of shows, do you see how teacher and pastor are right up in the top corner as the higher threat, and visitors are at the bottom corner? That's because control and access are the 2 biggest things that allow abuse to take place. Access being they can go to a place where nobody can see and where they're going to be, safe, and control because they need to have a relationship with that child to get that child trusting enough to not say anything and to keep them hidden away, from other people. So we've got access and control. If you think about it really hard, the people with the most access and control are people in positions of authority who are also with the kids 24/7, who also have access to the building. That's the people who are the most dangerous threat. Because of this, if you go to the next page, one of the things that our church is doing is we are going to require this year, starting this year, that there's going to be a visitor sign-in for anybody who's in Olympians who's not part of our group. So if your friend or cousin comes, they're welcome to come, but they have to sign their name on this page so we know who's here. That is going to be on a clipboard, and I haven't thought about where to put it yet. Where do you think it should be? Check-in table right out here.
That's the first place they come in.
That's a good idea. I like that. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you allow anybody that wasn't part of a group in?
Well, it happens on occasion. It's mostly that people have like a friend who's visiting who is a part of a children's ministry somewhere or is a parent of a child, and they're kind of sitting in. Now, what we do for visitors is not only have them sign this, they're not going to be allowed to go privately anywhere with the kids. If they walk out the back door, I'm after them to figure out where they're going. Not in a mean way, but I'm just going to say, hey, what's up? Like, where are you heading? Like, you shouldn't be walking back there kind of thing. If a teenager came back, they would be asked to sign their name. Yep. It's nothing crazy. It's just we're seeing who's there. We know who's there, right? We shouldn't have people there who we... Yeah, absolutely. And generally, they should be approved. Like if a random stranger off the street comes in and says, "Hey, can I sit in on your kids' ministry?" Like, no, sorry. The next packet here is what I would like is if you've not read it yet. I passed it out to some of you last time we did this. Just read through it. It's got a lot of good information about like what to look for and some of the trauma that kids might be experiencing that we don't have time to really cover, but it's really good, really thick. If we go to the next one, this is the Staff Volunteer Code of Conduct. Are you guys there? Staff volunteer. Yeah, so this is what we are committing to do as leaders. Because so the question becomes if it's a trusted person that's the most dangerous to us, and if we have them working with kids because we have a kids ministry and we're going to be in contact with kids, how do we then prevent abuse from happening? If a background check doesn't catch it, and if it's a trusted person, how do we prevent abuse? This is how. This is our policy that we're holding to. So the way we summarized it is just a 3T thing because it's easy to remember: touch, talk, and territory. And this is going to be mailed out to parents this year, so they're going to know to teach their kids this. We're going to play a video for the kids that breaks it down in a more like gentle way with the kids, like good talk, good touch, good territory. That's what we're about. Territory meaning my stuff, my space, right? You shouldn't be in somebody's stuff in their space. So here's kind of our policy that if you're working with Olympians, this is what we're agreeing to, okay? Appropriate, I'm just going to read through them. Appropriate things would be handshakes and high fives, girls walking hand in hand, maybe a short congratulatory or greeting hug, and that is, yeah, side hug. Because on the flip side, you'll see that front hugs are not allowed. So it's a side hug, quick like, hey, how are you doing? Arm around the shoulder, piggybacks with little kids, or having them sit on your knee if you're reading a story to them. That's appropriate. Inappropriate is going to be, obviously, some of these are more obvious, like massages or frontal hugs and lap sitting. You guys can know if there's a gray area in your mind, I would just encourage you to not go there. Yes?
What is leg sitting?
Leg sitting is like on your knee, like if there's a story time. Lap sitting would be like holding them tight. So there's separation there. Yep. So all of those things are not appropriate. We should never be doing those with kids. Now, there's going to be times when like a child wants to run up and give you a hug, and you cannot always avoid those things, but the goal is that we're not the initiators in that situation, and we're not asking for it, we're not encouraging it. And we don't linger, correct. So these are the guidelines that we're going to hold to. Talk, it is obviously okay to teach scripture, to be verbally encouraging, or to praise them for doing a good job on something. But what we're going to avoid is secret gifts. That is a huge thing that if you look into how abusers gain access to kids and pick a kid, it's almost 100% of the time involves gifts and secret favors that they do. So we're just going to nix that because we're not going to allow that kind of thing to happen. So no secret gifts. If there's a letter, it's encouraged that you send it to the parents, and then they can open it and they can read it to the kids. You can write them a letter, but it's not supposed to be addressed privately and secretively. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and postcards are cheap way to do it. Obviously, swearing or anything that's going to be a bad example to them would not be a good thing. And absolutely no discussion about their body or the development of their body. Unless they bring it up, we are not going to be like, hey man, I like those abs, to a teenager. That we're not going to, even if it's a guy-to-guy thing, we're not doing that because that can make the kid run in their mind to a bad place. Any kind of touching that's in, navel to thigh is not going to be appropriate, even playfully. Like, I'm just call you on it when you gave Josh a spank the other day. That's included in this. Okay, so He was being
He's not mouthy.
mouthy.
I was being mama.
But that's where it's like this, like you can see how this can become
Yeah.
edgy, and I actually know, I'm not trying to,
Being playfully mouthy, mom.
yes, not bad.
Bad.
If it had been bad, we would have had to take him to the woodshed.
Yeah.
But I'm going to just mention this because this is just ironic, but it's a good lesson, good learning time, that shortly after that happened, I was in conversation with another person who is completely unrelated, and this person had just had a friend get fired from their job for the same thing. And it was just because that person took it personally, right? So this can be a very serious thing, and we have to be very careful, even just for our own protection as leaders. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You can get in so much trouble.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's become such a,
There was a guy at my college.
Like a male employee can't say, wow, you really look nice today. Something as innocent as that
did you change your hair?
can be construed sexual.
Yeah, it can be. Because if you think about it, I'm not going to compliment like a random girl on their hair generally. So when you do, it stands out. You know, like if a random guy complimented your hair other than your husband, it would stand out to you. It'd be like, why did they, like, are they interested in me? You know, those thoughts start to happen because of the fact that that's not a normal thing we do all the time. And then territory is pretty self-explanatory, and the biggest one is the first one, which is no one-on-one interaction. Including, for us leaders, there is no situation, unless it's your own child, where you are allowed to be one-on-one in a room without other people there. If you have to have a discipline thing, then it has to be either in a big space, open space, with other people around, or it has to be with another leader. 2 leaders with the child, yes.
And even with the discipline, you should never do it alone because you want somebody there witnessing what's taking place.
Right.
Just protection of you, the church, and the child.
Mm-hmm.
You should always have 2 people,
Yes, at least 2 people. When what? I missed the first part.
When you're in a disciplinary
Oh, yeah.
setting, you should always have 2 people, 2 adults sitting there together.
Right, if you have to have a conversation about something they did, et cetera, yeah. Yes.
Okay to give our kids birthday gifts.
Your kids or your kids in your thing? If it's to everybody and it's public, that's not a secret gift or a special gift. A secret special gift is, hey, Jim, I bought you something, but don't tell anybody. You know, let's just keep it between us. That's a secret gift.
We encourage the community on birthday gifts because some kids have birthdays in the summer, so we always did, we picked 1 month and everybody got a birthday gift. And we celebrated everybody's birthday at that same time, so that then nobody was left out.
Final 2 things, if you flip it over, are modesty, and I don't think I have to mention that except for Josh. None of those like, what do you call those, like really thin strap things. I'm kidding.
No belly shirt?
Yeah, no belly shirts, no V-necks that come down your belly button, none of that stuff. So we're going to be modest, and then the final one is just the consequence is that any infraction of this will be grounds for us to be like, you're not working with kids ever again. Now, I am not, and Andrew is not, this hyper strict, like, oh snap, Susie ran up and gave you a hug, and it was 1.3 seconds before you let go of that hug. So that is, I'm sorry, no more. But this is like, if Andrew and I deem that this was a very foolish choice and that it was something dangerous and purposeful from anybody, then this is a grounds for like, I'm sorry, you can't work with kids. And the reason for that is protection. And we're not, again, I know you guys, I'm not going to be hyper crazy about it, but it's just good, I need to say that because we're being very serious about it. I'm just trying to communicate how serious, okay? Is that okay? hopefully that doesn't, I mean, hopefully that does scare you, but hopefully it doesn't scare you to the point where you're like, I'm not coming to this church. Next page is the commitment statement, which is you can read on your own time. We just expect those to be signed by anybody who's working with kids. I have a list of the ones that I still need from people. The next one is a safety policy for transporting kids, and that is going to be essentially the same as the room thing. It's the same policy for if you're driving a car. So, like, I cannot go and pick up one of the teens by myself. And I'm going to be honest with you guys that there is a time I did in the past year when a kid was like the last person around and they're like, I need a ride home. And I took them home, and then I was called on it by Renee afterwards. And it was like, that's in the pot, like, we can't do that, right? So it's very tempting. It's very easy to give in to those things. But it's always got to be 2 adults, and it's always got to be at least 2 kids.
So what else would you have done in that situation? Sat and waited there?
Sometimes there's situations where you get stuck, where it's like everybody left the building without telling me, and one kid was lingering, and I'm here cleaning up. I actually had that happen twice this year. I think once with Lexi, where like her dad just like had left her here, and everybody else had left, and I was the only person here. So I purposely tried to stay in a different place, and like not like come up and talk with her. But sometimes like you're forced into a situation, and that's understandable. But I mean,
Yeah, but in that situation, I think what's worse, being alone in this building, or have a kid sit in the back seat.
oh, true. That's true. Or calling, you know, there's definitely people in the area you could call, like Gina, and if she's available, I 100% would say would drop in. If like, I mean, you could call me. I live far away, so if it's my day off, I'm going to be a ways away. But yeah, absolutely.
Because of where I live,
Mm-hmm.
there are kids that I can pick up and bring that live in Prairieville, but I don't have that second driver. If it's a brother and sister, and I'm the only adult, can I pick up the brother and sister together? Or is it still have to be 2 adults?
If they're older than 12, or if one of them is older than 12, then it's okay. Otherwise, according to our policy, no. Because the problem is kids under 12 oftentimes are not aware enough to know what's happening. Or we'll find a ride. Or we'll find a ride because there's other people we can, I mean, we can come to the church and plead for a driver, and we can get a bus route. But
Well, I know there's kids there that,
yeah,
I know their parents, and all I have to say is, I'll pick them up. But I can't say that because
right.
I was gonna say, because I kinda, our neighbors that live below us, their daughter, I just talked to them, and their daughter might be coming, but that would mean that I would be coming by and picking her up by myself too.
unless you had
Wayne would be coming from work probably, so it'd be just me, so.
Okay. We'll talk about it. I know we can figure out something, and it's
If you have maybe
Even if you
permission
had
from the
permission
kids or
slip from the
parents.
parents.
Yeah.
right.
You know,
But I've known of one situation where a guy gave a student a ride home in college. The person made up an accusation, reported it, sexual abuse investigation for 3 months, and that person, from that point on, had that on their record, even though it wasn't necessarily like, so like these things happen. So like you might not expect the kid to say that or do that, but
I honestly do, and especially when you get into 4th, 5th, 6th grade and above.
I remember conversations in 6th grade. I mean, when I was your age, like we know stuff when we're that age, and kids are very easily like led to say and do things that they regret later. Sometimes because they're impressionable and less wise at times. Okay, final thing in here to go through is 2 pages about responding to abuse. I wanted to just focus on the second one, which is responding to abuse protocol. Just so you guys know, if we're back to this, what if the child says this to me? How can we deal with it, okay? So I'm just going to read through a couple of these things. The number 1 thing to do in the event of any mention, suspicion, or witness of possible abuse, notify the youth pastor, which would at this time be me, And if I'm being accused, do not notify me. Notify Andrew. I am on responding protocol. Responding to abuse protocol. Yes, do not tell the person who's being accused, we had this person say this thing, because what is that person going to do? I'm going to start coming up with my stories, my defense. I'm going to possibly just disappear. If it was a really dangerous thing, he'll be one of the 100,000 who just goes missing, right? Okay, so do not tell the person. Tell either me or Pastor Andrew if it is me. We will begin quickly gathering information and facts. This happened this year. I sat down with a teenager, with his mom, and we talked, and I got the details, and it was good. And it was a false accusation, and it was not him. He was falsely accused by some other person. So it worked out. It was clearly false, and he had to deal with that in counseling about why did these people attack me this way by falsely accusing me of this thing? And that was very hard, but we got through it, and he's doing well. So then I'm going to then fill out a form, an abuse report form. I'm going to mail that in to both Pastor Andrew and also the authorities out there who deal with abuse, and they're going to be the ones who take the investigation and deal with it and try to figure things out, and I'll work alongside them. That's what happened in this other situation. They did a good job of getting to the truth. I filled them in on all the details I know. And then lastly, if you feel like reporting something that is maybe non-church related, you're not a mandatory reporter, by the way. I am a mandatory reporter. If I hear of something, I have to report it, even if I think it's false. I still have to report it. You guys are not. But if you want to, there's a hotline there that you can call. This hotline is also going to be mailed to parents. This hotline is going to be available to the church family to know of. If they see anything suspicious, they can just call it. They'll ask the following questions, and then if it's an out-of-state thing, it can become tricky because states have different policies, and they'll go back and forth about who's going to deal with it. Now, are there false accusations that are made? Yes. What percentage of the accusations are false? Very low. And they're generally, if they are false, they're made by parents, generally, not by kids. Kids?
The accusations are actually prosecuted?
Very few, because they need tangible evidence to prosecute. Unfortunately, a lot of times in these situations, it's like they said, I said, he said, she said, and they can't.
The biggest reason people don't report is because you wind up injuring that child more.
Sure. Though I don't think it necessarily has to injure them. And I've experienced it with two friends of mine who have had it happen to them, both of whom were reported, and it went okay. And this other kid that I just counseled. So I've only been through this a number of times. I think it's 4 total that I've been through this. And all of those times it was reported, and all of those times that ended up being beneficial. And it would have been better than if people had never said anything. Because in the other cases, it was actually legit what happened. The one was false, the other 3 were not false. So let's move on to a lighter topic of discipline. I'm kidding. We'll try to make it a little bit fun. Right. So anyway, there's a reason why I put these mouse traps out on the stage, and it's because this is the world that these kids are in, right? And many of them don't know God, correct? And what is that described as in the Bible? Spiritually. Blindness, right? Many of them don't know God. Many of them don't know better. They're kids, they're impressionable. So going through life is kind of like this, like walking barefoot through a stage full of mouse traps, right? And if you don't see it this way, this is what is, it's inevitable it's inevitable that they get hurt. Is it not? In the world we're in, the kids in our Olympians are inevitably going to get hurt. Whoa, that was close. But they're walking through life, and I didn't hit any. I'm going to stop while my luck is strong. But I just wanted to make that point because look at their life that way. Like when they come into a club, they just got through a crazy week with traps, and maybe they got snapped a couple times. And that's just a reality of the world. They're going to get hurt, and some of them are going to be hurt the most by the people that they love the most. It's not just abuse, right? The mousetraps, it's temptation, right, to sin that comes at them from every angle. It's physical danger even, like mousetraps, that they could get snapped by, right? It's physical, it's emotional. Our world is full of things that are painful and dangerous. But question, what do we believe about every child's heart as far as how they tend to naturally respond to being hurt? What do we believe about the heart that is the way that all of these kids, all of them, 100% of them, naturally respond to being hurt? Yeah.
It's anger.
Right, so these are all good answers. Anger, what did you say? Yeah, hurt. You know, if I got hurt, I'll hurt back. Revenge. Absolutely. What else?
Well, most of them become hyper-vigilant.
Yeah.
They're constantly on alert.
Absolutely. There's really two things that can happen. And I don't know if you thought about it in these terms, but it's really two things. Number one, the first response could be shame or hiding or fear, right? That's the one side. It's like, I got hurt, so I need to, what? Put up a wall, right? I need to hide myself. And that goes back all the way to the Garden of Eden, right? As the minute sin entered the world, what are we doing? Because in the garden, we were naked and not ashamed, right? There was no shame. But as soon as sin enters the world, what are we doing? We're hiding. From what? From God? Absolutely. That's...
From your sin.
Yeah, from sin. Honestly, what we're doing is we're hiding from the traps. A lot of them are not ones that are real. Some of them are fake, that we have in our own minds. But this is what I wanted to emphasize. I think there's two ways that they do that, two ways that they hide. The first is shame. So that's like low self-esteem, right? Depression. By the way, those are up right now. Low self-esteem and depression and anxiety. That response is high right now because of COVID and all that. And low self-esteem is actually high self-esteem too, right? Because low self-esteem is me saying, I should be better than I am. I failed myself. I should be here. I could be here. I have capabilities of being here, but I'm here, right? And I beat myself up over that because I'm not perfect, and I should be perfect because I can't be perfect. That's what low self-esteem is telling people. But then there's the opposite response of low self-esteem, right? Which is what? High self-esteem. Yeah, pride. So oftentimes when a child gets hurt, they'll either respond with shame and blaming themselves and wishing they had done something differently on the one hand, and the flip side is they'll respond with self-confidence. And that's the walls thing. I'll put up my walls. I'll handle this. I won't share my personal life with people. I'll only talk to the people I can trust. And in a lot of these situations, who can they trust? If I can't trust those I love, and those who say they love me, who can I trust? No, right? Me. Me is it. So that leads us to two questions as far as discipline goes, and they're two different questions. Number one is, how should we relate to kids who are hurting? And then second question, how should we relate to kids who have sinned? See, there's a difference there? How do I relate to a kid who's hurt? And how do I relate to a kid who has sinned? Can both of those things be true? Yes, right? Any of you with kids know this. Like, he hit me, so I hit him back, right? And then you have both, right? So here's a question. Is there a difference between those two responses? How to relate to a kid who's been hurt and how to relate to a kid who's sinned? Sharon is nodding yes. So what is different, Sharon? Hmm. Absolutely. You just nailed my things that are the same list. Okay? Because what I was going to start by saying is there's actually a lot of similarities between those two things, hurting and sinning. People who are hurt and people who are sinning. Number one similarity is we should expect it to happen, right? Inevitably, our kids are going to do stupid things and sin, and inevitably they're going to get hurt by people. So both are expected. Number two, we need rapport to gently minister to them. And what I was going to do, but I couldn't find a plate that wasn't like valuable. Imagine I had a glass plate and a hammer, right? And I'm trying to give some discipline to the plate, right? Chip away a little imperfection. What's going to happen if I just do that? Probably break the plate, probably shatter the plate. If I walk up to a random stranger and start going into them about something I disagree with them on, likely chance, unless I do it in a very loving way, that's going to kind of shatter that relationship, at least for a time. Now, what you could also do is you could take a bunch of newspapers and start wrapping this plate up with newspapers. Compliments. I've recognized you're a pretty smart kid. You can even do that when you discipline them. Cindy was telling me that today, like saying, hey, I love you, but why did you just punch Bobby? Right? That's a very important thing. So we're trying to build rapport so that when there is a discipline issue, they won't think this person hates me. They'll think this person loves me, and they're disagreeing or they're trying to point something out. And that's a very different thing. It still hurts, and they still don't like it, but it doesn't often shatter the relationship, completely. So that's the second one, and Sharon mentioned that, just knowing what's going on in their life and being there for them. And then the third one she also said was asking the right questions. And that is what I wanted to emphasize is the key to both, is if there is somebody who's hurting, we need to ask the right questions to know what happened, what the situation was, because there might be something that needs to be addressed or resolved. And we can also ask questions to help them navigate what happened to them. But also, if we're disciplining them, we should also ask them questions because we might not understand the full situation of what happened, and we need to get that picture. So what I wanted you guys to have here, which I find super helpful, is these 5 questions by Paul Tripp. It's called 5 Questions to Get at Your Child's Heart. And I was going to quickly go through this. It's super good way of dealing with a discipline issue, because this helps them navigate through, number one, it shows you what happened, and number two, it helps them navigate through why did they do what they did, what's behind it, right? We're not after behavior modification, we're after the heart. So, number one question is what was happening, what was going on, what happened, right? At this point, they're going to say their side of the story, right? They're going to be like, well, this one person stole everything I had and put me underwater and beat up my goldfish, right? They're going to lay everything out. But number two, then, we're getting beyond what happened to what were they thinking or feeling, right? So what were you thinking and feeling as this was happening? What did that make you feel? Or what were you thinking when that was happening, right? Because this question gets after the heart. the heart is always moving. It is always deciding and thinking and wanting. And oftentimes the reason we blow up is because we wanted something that we didn't get. So what were they wanting is what we're getting at with that question. Number 3, what did you do in response? What is that question asking them? What connection is that making? Yes, right? What did you choose to do? What did you decide to do when you wanted that person to not say mean things about you, when you wanted their approval? What did you do, right? How did you react, right? So this goes after their behavior, but also the fact that they had the ability to choose. So then, why did you do it? And what were you seeking to accomplish? And that's huge. Like, what is that question getting after? Yeah, the motivation. What were you wanting to accomplish when you punched Bobby for that whole list of things you mentioned a second ago? And then here's the final one, which is also critical. What was the result? Did it work? You know, when you wanted Bobby to stop being mean to you, when you punched him, did that help him stop being mean to you? Right? No. It made it worse. Then he punched me back, and then it just became a fight, right? So then you're teaching them. You're teaching them not only this is what's going on inside, and this is why I did what I did, but you're teaching them. So this is very helpful. I'd encourage you to memorize these. I use them all the time. Once I heard it, it's like, this very much works. It takes it from this situation where he's like, well, this person did these things to me, and I'm angry, and I want you to go talk to them and punish them. It takes it from that kind of conversation to a conversation. Like, man, that was, and you were just saying that you just had to do this with Valerie, right?
Oh, yeah.
You want to share that real quick?
Saturday, the kids were helping, and little Titus got a little rough with his sister, Joy, and punched Joy. So Joy punched her mother. So I went and I looked at it and says, honey, did you really just punch your mother? I said, you know I love you, but that is so unacceptable. I said, why would you punch your mother? Yeah, well, Titus hit me. So that gave you permission to punch your mother. Well, no. So why did you punch your mother? Well, I don't know. I said, so what do you need to do? She's like, I don't know. I said, you need to apologize to your mother. I'm not going to. I love you very much, but you have a choice. You either apologize to your mother or you go sit in my corner. I'm sorry. No. See, I'm one of these, I don't like the just, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Right.
I said, Joy, I apologize for, I don't want, Joy, we will look in the
Mhm.
eyes and that look.
Mhm.
And we'll either that or sit in the corner. She looked at her mom, she says, I apologize, Mom, for punching you. And I loved it. Valerie put her arms around her and says, and I accept your apology.
Hmm.
You know. But
Yeah, that's really cool. And you could have even, again, like just to spin off of what we're doing here, what other questions could she have asked in addition to those questions? Sure, yeah. Do you feel better now? That's a great one. What else? We're almost done here.
Thinking and feeling, what are you wanting?
Yeah, you could have asked it. Like, so for example, you could have said, what just happened? Well, Titus hit me. What else happened? Because then it makes them own it, right? Well, I punched. Well, I said something mean. What else happened? Oh, I hit my mom, right? Then they have to say it. And then what were you thinking or feeling when Titus was hitting you? And then that question of why did you punch your mom? Well, because I was angry at Titus. Well, did that work? Helping you not be angry at Titus? And did it help your relationship with your mom at all? And
Well, she made it.
yeah, absolutely.
Understand the train of thought.
Right. So that's discipline in a nutshell. I think this is a huge thing. And the questions piece is the most important piece. That you just, when somebody comes to you with a story of something that happened, you're asking what happened and detailed questions about why, what were you feeling? Did anybody else see it? Because if it's just your story, like, well, you say that happened out in the main room. Did anybody else see it? You're getting the whole picture, so you can tell if they're lying and if they're, and that way you're not coming down on them when you think that they're the one who did the wrong, but it was really like they did like something wrong, but somebody else did something really, really bad, and they got hurt, legitimately hurt, and they're bleeding, and you're not telling them like, you're at fault here. You need to go in the corner, right? Because you find out the whole situation, you realize this person is really emotionally hurt, and they did something wrong, and I'll address that, but they're not the person who started it. I need to go talk to this person over here. So that being said, it was a lot of information there, and I gave you the packet so you'd have all of it so you could read through it on your own time and kind of study it. If you have any more questions about policy stuff, I'd be happy to answer those. What time is it, Josh? Or Sharon? 22. 8:22. All right, so technically we're supposed to be done at 8:30. So I wanted to, what? Yes. Yeah, if you haven't signed it yet and you're willing to sign it, just read through it and absolutely. Thank you. Why don't I was going to do another quick small group discussion. We'll just do that another day. We'll just kind of come in early on Olympians and we'll practice small group discussion. Why don't we circle up, though, and pray? I wanted that to be the way we ended the night. Again, just to pray for Olympians. With my shoes on? I'll do it with my shoes on. Can we circle up in just a circle here? I haven't told you guys this, but in addition to the schedule that you got last week that had all the information about times and when things are going to happen, I would like us to be here 15 minutes early if you can. I understand if there's a week when you can't, if work is going crazy, half hour to 15 minutes early. That's what I meant, not 15. Yeah, 6 o'clock, and then if you can make it absolutely by 15 minutes, that'd be nice, because things happen, and it's like having people here is really beneficial, and we had a lot of people late last year. So try to be here by 6, and then I want every single week for us to pray together. I think that'd be really huge. We didn't do that last year because we were all last minute, and it's just a really important thing, I think, for the night to, if we really believe God's the only one who can work on their hearts and change their hearts, why do we try to do it without praying? So,
What time is the meal?
The meal is at 5:30, and so there is going to be food, and we could always just come to the meal and then go after that too. That's a good point.
And at that meeting, we'll also be looking at what's going ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And then the first night we won't do this, but.
Yes, anytime you want to.
Filling out that top sheet of concerns or suggestions,
Mm-hmm.
those will be looked at during the week so that we can discuss them.
Yes, anytime you can make it. We're going to be talking about last week, and this in your lesson, this was awful, and this was good, and no, seriously, this didn't really work. You went too long, and the kids were really distracted, and they weren't paying attention.
Yeah, that's one thing I was gonna say, the schedule you handed out last week, it
Mm-hmm.
was 25 minutes for Bible time.
Mm-hmm. That is very difficult to have happen.
I would say after 15 minutes, you've lost most of them, and after 20, you've lost all of them.
Oh, you think so?
Unless it's my husband.
Well, Tim, yeah, because Tim occasionally goes for 45 minutes.
But if it's just,
Yeah.
yeah,
It probably depends on the teacher and then.
It depends what you're doing. If you're keeping the kids involved.
First and second graders, 20 minutes is
A long time. Well,
and especially kids that aren't, church kids are one thing, but kids that aren't used to sitting,
Mhm.
sitting still,
mhm,
that can be agony.
But
Absolutely.
don't they do that Well, I know they're not, that's one thing, when you were
First grade.
saying how we're gonna have these kids coming, these kids have not been around, the ones who have been watching them, the ones who are abused in that. They haven't had that support system, so
Because of
because of COVID be done.
Because of the
and not
COVID.
being around adults and that, so, yeah.
yeah.
And there's a lot
And
of
they
them,
haven't been
because of
sitting.
that are going to want to snuggle,
Yeah.
especially some of the little
Yes.
ones.
Yeah.
They haven't had their.
They have not had the affection of a teacher.
Yeah.
That
Mhm.
might have been the only affection they
Right.
could get.
Mhm.
And so they're going to want to snuggle.
And on that, like, again, we don't want to be like hyper hands-offish or anything. We don't want to
Sit
be.
next to you, and you can put a hand on
Yeah.
your
You
shoulder.
can put a hand- you can give them a nice like, hey, good to see you. Or a side hug. I'm really glad you're here. I'm so glad to see you. And we can keep each other on par with that too if we see
They
like.
want to lean on you, that chair.
And as long as you're in the group setting, I don't see.
I would advise against it because nowadays it's like the gender thing. You don't know.
There's a fine line between.
You don't know what
Oh, I didn't hear the sitting on the lap.
their parents
Yeah.
teaching their kids at
Even on the
age
knee, I-
2 that they can decide, and they've thought of themselves their whole life as a boy, and they think of it like literally like it's not a guy girl thing now, and a lot of abuse does not just happen guy girl. It happens guy to guy, girl to girl. So it's a very messed up world and messed up country, especially when you get underneath the surface to what's actually going on.
And we have ordered, they should be in next week.
Yes, we have face shields that are clear,
plastic
so they can see our
masks for
smiles.
us.
Wait, you
All
want
of
like
us.
this? Big ones?
No,
Yes,
we-
like full out shields. So we come in like,
But that way the kids can see our smiles
Or our frowns.
and.
I can provide you test results that I have antibodies.
really?
Yeah.
Then you're good.
I don't have to wear the mask.
Yep.
Right? Do you need the test results?
Sure, I believe you. I don't know for documentation purpose if OSHA shows up. That's not even, wait, that's animals. If OSHA shows up, they might have a problem with.
In the church setting, it's whatever our church leadership
Oh, is it?
decides for us.
Okay,
They
so
cannot
then-
dictate what we do in the church.
Okay, if that's true, then
So it's
don't worry about it.
whatever our church leadership.
Yep.
And I'm going.
I believe you.
The 19th to the 3rd. So is that okay?
Yep.
In January.
Yeah.
It's starting on the 6th. It's starting on the 6th.
So the 19th through the 3rd of January.
Oh, of January. Yeah.
Oh, we don't start till the 6th, so you'll be okay.
Start in
Yeah.
January, yeah.
Yep.
That'll be just great.
So then we show up at 6 o'clock on the 6th.
Yes.
Or
Or 5:30.
Is that every week or is that?
That's every single week that there's a meal. So you can show up at 5:30. First week, since we're new, let's do 5:30 for the first week, just because there will be little details to be like, oh wait, what do I do with my group at this time, and we'll just talk about that, and it'll help. So
We pick our own rooms, or is that, I need to.
I'm doing everything in the gym.
we're doing everything in the gym, and we're gonna have the tables when they come in be out here for your groups. So when they come in, there'll be like, I think maybe 3 or 4, probably 4 in this room, and there'll be 1 in that classroom and 1 in the kitchen. So it's like that way the kids, because we were in the other side of the building with our groups, and the kids would come in late, and then they would be like
Can we use the
wandering around.
gophers, or is it
Oh, gophers are in the kitchen. I'm sorry. That's
Use a toddler nursery.
toddler nursery would be another option.
So, because I wasn't quite getting that either, so is there going to be a second counseling time or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, there's 2. The first one is like, how was your week? What were your verses? There's this little activity we're doing this week. Write down a couple things that you wanted to share with the group. That's like, it's like an intro little,
Right.
how was your week time? And then,
Gym, do the pledges, song time.
yep.
Bible lesson.
Yep.
We wake up again.
Then after the Bible lesson, we break up again, and half of the kids do their Bible study, while half of the kids are in the gym doing games. And then they switch.
Are we gonna do that by teams? So 2 teams will come in and do their games, while the other 2 teams are doing their Bible study and then
Right.
switch?
Right, so there's,
Oh,
I
I
think,
thought we were running game time and all that all at the same time.
That's kind of
we
what I
can
thought.
as long as there's enough space, because the reason that it was split like that is like the gym was packed. And when you were having 6th and 5th graders running over 1st graders.
Oh, I thought that's what we talked about, splitting the kids up into teams.
Yeah, we could do
They're all
that.
different ages.
I don't
Not the
mind
same
as long as the game is like safe and it's not so packed in there that you can't even
Yeah, but you do
operate.
things like relays where only one's running at a time, and
Yep.
the rest of them have to be sat down or whatever.
We have plenty of rooms for breaking up into groups, so we'd be fine either way.
But we're not using the separate rooms, we're always coming over here then for the second group time?
No, we're using the separate rooms over there. Yep. This is just at the beginning. There's tables set up already from dinner, so it's not going to be any extra work. It's right when they come in, they sit down with their leader, and then afterwards, when you break up, you'll have your designated area, either upstairs room or downstairs room, where you go. That's what we did last year.
Yeah, can I just say something about that?
Yes.
Every time they move,
Mm-hmm.
we've lost 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
We just lost 5 minutes.
That's true.
So if we just use separate corners of the gym and maybe that.
Oh, that's a good idea too. The only thing is the loudness, and the only other thing is like, if we use tables, we'd have to tear down then. But if you just sat on the floor in a small circle, that would be very easy. But I know some of your guys' backs, yeah, some of your guys' backs or knees. My back hurts when I'm sitting on the floor for a long time, but it's obviously not that
Just saying, every time.
crazy.
Every time you move, it's like hurting the abs. You can't
Yes.
Get them all over, get them all, and then they just,
Hmm.
you almost have to clamp onto them or else they're gone.
Right.
I mean,
I can't wait to see these kids.
Some of them are pretty crazy. It's fun.
Probably talk about the bathroom,
Hmm.
you know, policy. What's that gonna look like? Are you gonna let them go by themselves?
I think that's the thing is, because that got to be a thing during the Bible lesson every time. They
Mm-hmm.
had to go to the bathroom, and then one had to go, the other one had to go, and it was like, and so
Oy.
I just went to all the girls before Bible time started,
Mm-hmm.
usually during song time, I said, if you need to use the restroom, now's the time, because you're not coming here Bible time.
Mhm.
Maybe we could.
I
do
know in
part
some
of that
cases. Sorry.
25 minutes
Mm-hmm.
and say, okay, 5 minutes of that 25 minutes for lesson is bathroom break. Because you have bathrooms here and you have bathrooms
Yeah,
back
but you
here.
don't want them,
yeah.
that's what I'm saying, when you start getting them going back and forth between these two buildings,
Mm-hmm.
because you have that outside exit, we're asking for trouble.
Mm-hmm.
We're asking for trouble.
Yeah, I would.
Go down that hall.
I don't know if we can schedule bathroom. I'm not sure I'd.
I would just say.
Because you don't always have every kid need it, and if you give it to them, they'll take it.
Yeah, your little group, when you're over here on these tables, just say, hey, if you need to use the restroom, here it is.
Yep, that's a good
Because
idea.
over there it's cold.
And
Yeah.
every group should have a helper, so the helper, so that the kids aren't
Right.
In the old
left
building,
alone.
you go down that hall.
And with helpers,
I have a tour.
let
She
me.
doesn't have the nickel tour.
Oh, we'll give you the tour after we pray.
This is as far as I've ever.
Really? Oh man.
You'll be disappointed. That
Yes,
was
you'll be.
nice over there.
Yeah, you might.
Aww.
Hey, yeah.
Down this week.
We've been working hard on
I
it.
haven't seen the gym yet. I hear it's really nice.
I do want to pray, so why don't we do that? And again, just like pray if you feel like led to pray. And I will close us this time.
Lord, I thank you for this time we've had together. Wasn't a really pleasant topic, but Lord, just help us to remember that these are your children, they're precious in your sight, and that your blood covers their sin just as it covers ours. Lord, help us be patient and kind with these children, but also let us show that you are also a God of order, not chaos, and that the rules in your word will help them have a better life. Help us to teach them your word so that, and a love for you so that some of these kids, that's going to be their only way out of really bad Lord, help our hearts to be exemplary to them, Lord, to love them the way you love us.
Yeah.
And we ask for your help. We ask for this community to be reached with the good news. And thank you, Lord, for the fact that we can reach out and you can use us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Lord, I'm appreciative of all of the people here and for their willingness to serve some of the least of these, as you told us to do, those who are less able to defend themselves. And I know this is such a just destructive world that we're in, and I feel for some of these kids, Lord. I feel for Kylie and her cousins and the issues at home with drugs, and I feel for what was her name? Keely, Lord, with the abuse and violence that people have shown where they are attacking their spouse right in the room, and she's seeing the blood and she's seeing the terror of it, and it's just such an extreme and crazy thing. And I know there are kids who struggle with these things daily, or if not just on occasion, and we just want to be there for them. We want to share your love with them, and I just ask that we'd be able to do that, and that we'd be safe and wise and careful about the way that we teach and the way that we engage ourselves, that there'd be no cause for suspicion, that we would love well and build relationships with these kids that might even last the rest of our lives, and that we would adopt them into our family. And I just ask for guidance and help on that, Lord. I know I'm pretty tired right now, and I know a lot of us might be during that this new year at some points, and we just need your strength every day. We're here. We need your help. We can't say a word that's of you unless it's by your Spirit. So we need you to help us say the right things and do the right things, and just pray, Lord, for that the whole year. And again, I thank you for the time to be together. I thank you for the ability to serve you, and for your love to save us and to let us be a part of what you're doing. And I pray all of this in your name. Amen. All right. Do we need some? We could get some card tables. I don't think we have any. Oh, for groups?
Perfect. We've got stairs going, 3 sets of stairs. I'll take the stairs going upstairs. It's not very far to go upstairs to one of those rooms.
Yeah.
The other thing, when you run 2 separate.
Can you press the button that's orange or red on the screen?
Just press them all.
It says like streaming.